But Dennis Quaid's now done something that nobody's ever been able to do. Scare the heck out of Jesse Waters. Quaid has a new documentary out, Grid Down, Power Up, which explores the frightening possibility of our energy's grid going down.
Heat, gas for our cars, transportation for food restocking, all of it relies to some extent on electricity. But no one likes to focus on what could happen if it all suddenly is taken away.
Star of the upcoming Amazon film, On a Wing and a Prayer, Dennis Quaid joins me now. So people have tried to take out our energy grid. There was some sort of attack with weapons many years ago in California.
There's been several attacks on substations. I heard about one a couple of months ago. And this is not day after tomorrow, by the way. This is tomorrow, I think. It could happen. And it's a problem that we could fix. It's basically this. In 2003, right here in New York, there was a wire that brushed up against a tree limb, and it took out the electricity for New York for 2 days. That was just a small little event. But at a GMT event, like a bad actor could take out through a Chinese balloon for all we know,
so they could have put a little something on that balloon, exploded it over the United States, and we lose power for how long?
Well, it could be up to like 30 days. But what we're talking about is a nuclear explosion up in space. A nuclear explosion in the atmosphere above the United States could unleash a burst of invisible electrical energy that within a fraction of a second could wash over this country and overload all of our most sensitive electronic devices, including the nation's power grid. Just 30 days without electricity, it would take us back to 1880, and you wouldn't be able to get gas, you wouldn't be able to get food. The police would stay home, take care of their own families.
And you can't even survive 3 days without water, and it would affect the water system as well.
Yes, exactly. We keep talking about it, but nothing ever gets done.
Again, the question I'd ask, we've taken it seriously, what have we actually done other than literally admire the problem?
There are plans for hurricanes, there are plans for snowstorms, there are plans for earthquakes. There is no plan for a cyber attack that would be infinitely longer in duration and more widespread than any of those natural disasters.
Energy companies don't want to pay for it. The utilities companies don't want to pay for it. It's something that we could put in our budget over time, and we get about $50 billion of a $5 trillion budget that we have. But over time, this is something that if it does happen, it's going to make the COVID look like a kid's show.
It is going to be a cold, dark night for many South Africans, with stage 6 load shedding announced.
South Africa is sinking into darkness. Its crumbling power system no longer able to keep the lights on. The poorest here, hit hardest.
After 25 years.
You're going to have to close down?
Yes.
The power crisis is the result of decades of mismanagement and massive corruption. Criminal gangs ready to kill anyone who tries to stop the looting.
I was shaking badly. I was literally lying like this, and I started gasping for air. A mixture of cyanide and sodium arsenite.
Today, South Africa still gets almost all its power from burning coal. It's a lethal addiction.
It's killing us. This coal is killing us.
The answer to many is a green revolution. But can Western money and pressure help South Africa embrace renewable energy? Or is the rot here simply too deep?
It's very depressing. It's very concerning. Our country is in a serious, dark place.
It began in healthy-looking pigs, months, perhaps years ago. A new coronavirus spread silently within herds.
The Event 201 scenario is fictional. Today's scenario is going to simulate meetings of a multi-stakeholder group called the Pandemic Emergency Board. This board has been urgently convened by the World Economic Forum.
This meeting of some of the world's most powerful elite took place in 2019.
We're at the start of what's looking like it will be a severe pandemic. And there are problems emerging that can only be solved by global business and governments working together.
The mission?
To provide recommendations to deal with the major global challenges arising in response to an unfolding pandemic.
Less than 12 months later, and...
Stay at home, that is the order tonight from 4 state governors as the coronavirus pandemic spreads.
Well, the World Economic Forum just held another meeting. This one to discuss the coming cyber attack. They're predicting a catastrophic one will occur in the next 2 years. Now, everything these global elites discussed pre-COVID soon became our reality.
We could be looking at double the number of cases in 1 week if we are not able to stop the spread.
We must do all we can to stop the spread of the virus.
It changed our world, our personal freedoms, forever. Tonight, does lightning strike twice? What do they know about our future? Is a cyber attack imminent? And if it occurs, will it be what globalists need to destroy our free will once and for all? Tonight, the COVID blueprint, the next crisis globalists will use to control you.
Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story this hour. The UK organisations experienced an average of 788 weekly cyber attacks across 2022. This marks a 77% increase from the year 2021. Now, the new figures reveal the growing concerns of cyber threats. The increase in cyber attacks is largely driven by sophisticated ransomware gangs. Stock trading in London was plunged into chaos after reports of a Russia-backed ransomware gang attacking a company that plays a key role in Britain's financial system. Lockbit, the group behind the cyber attack against Royal Mail last month, targeted trading software provider Ion Group on Tuesday. The London-based company plays an integral role in the plumbing that underpins the trading of shares, debt and derivatives in the square mile. Ion said that 42 clients have been affected by the attack as it faced disruption in its cleared derivatives division. The attack comes just weeks after Lockbit forced Royal Mail to suspend international postage deliveries. Now, this left more than 500,000 parcels and letters stuck in limbo. Earlier, on the 11th of January, The Guardian confirmed that it was hit by a ransomware attack and that the personal data of UK staff members had been accessed in the incident. Now, these are not standalone incidents. Rather, these vindicate the precarious condition of cybersecurity in businesses across the United Kingdom. According to a UK government report published last year, almost every 1 in 3 businesses in the UK are experiencing data breaches or cyber attacks at least once a week. Now, this constitutes 31% of all businesses and over a quarter of charities.
Well, here's a really interesting story. So 5 days ago, last Wednesday, the FAA ordered a ground stop on all air travel in the U.S. That meant that not a single commercial or private aircraft was allowed in the skies over this country. And that's very serious. Hard to overstate the seriousness of that, actually. The only other time this country has imposed a national ground stop was after 9/11, the terror attacks 21 years ago. So it's a huge deal. What happened? Why did the government ground all the planes? So people asked, but initially no one seemed to know. Pete Buttigieg, who runs the transportation department, which oversees the FAA, went on TV to say he was not quite sure. And then over the next several hours, a kind of story emerged. The government system that sends messages to pilots, called NOTAM, had gone down. And then the emergency backup system had also gone down. Now, the FAA claimed it first noticed this on Tuesday night. When the problem could not be fixed, the government issued a ground stop the next morning. That's what Pete Buttigieg said. He described the culprit here as, quote, a damaged database file with no evidence of a cyber attack. So to repeat, said Pete Buttigieg, there was no evidence of a cyber attack. It was just your garden variety software snafu. Some contractor entered the wrong code. No big deal. That's what they said, but it was not a very convincing story if you thought about it. Shutting down all commercial air travel in this country, even for a morning, is a very serious thing to do. U.S. airlines haul close to 750 million people every year. Air travel is essential. It's also potentially dangerous. So for a lot of reasons, it is imperative that our system works perfectly. But one day, our system just shut down for no real reason. Is that what you're telling us? Yes, explained Pete Buttigieg with a straight face. Now, most people seem to think this was fine. We were not entirely convinced. And then the next day, last Thursday, we noticed that virtually the same thing happened in Canada. Well, that was very strange because the US and Canada have separate aviation authorities. They're different countries, and each country uses its own software to route their planes. The systems are not linked to each other. And yet, 24 hours after our country's NOTAM system went down, Canada's NOTAM system went down also. According to the Canadian government, its system, quote, experienced an outage. Really? What are the odds of that? And then we remembered that on New Year's Day, 2 weeks ago, something similar happened in the Philippines. Its air traffic control system also went down. For a time, no aircraft were allowed in Philippine airspace. Thousands of flights over Asia had to be rerouted, which is expensive and dangerous, potentially. Now, this was also, they told us at the time, some sort of minor technical problem that we should not worry about. Calm down. Everything's fine. But is everything fine? Or is it possible that somebody is hacking into aviation systems and holding various governments around the world hostage until they pay a ransom? Well, yes, it's entirely possible. In fact, take away cash and make everything digital, and digital currency is central bank digital currency. Obviously, you have no power whatsoever. If they don't like what you're doing, they just shut you down and you're impoverished. It just happened in Canada last winter, so we know what the consequences are, and we know why they want it. So that couldn't happen, right? Well, we may live to see the day that it does happen. And here's the latest sign that it may be happening. The number of banks and ATM machines in this country are in steep decline. Far fewer than there were just a few years ago. And in some countries like Australia, they're going away at high speed. So this is not something that anyone voted on. This is something that they're just doing, whether you like it or not. So you can say we have cash, but if you can't get cash, then do you really have cash? So where's this going? That's the question we want to assess tonight. And we're going to with Catherine Austin Fitts, who has been monitoring this. She founded the Solario Report. She's also the Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, and we're happy to have her. Catherine, thanks for coming on. So I think if you put this up to a vote nationally, most people would say, no, I may not use cash, but I'd like to have cash, because if there's no cash, then I have no control over my life. But it seems like this could be a way to affect the same outcome without a vote.
So, Tucker, the one of the bedrocks of freedom is freedom to do financial transactions, including privately, or freedom to do where you want to do and wherever you want to do. And unfortunately, as the financial system has become more and more digital, you see more and more not only invasive surveillance, but more and more controls. You referred to Canada, perfect example. And the reality, as the financial system gets more controlling and more invasive, it's a little bit like bringing up a corral around us. And CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and vaccine passports or digital IDs are sort of the last shutting of the gate.
All right, well, let's talk about what's happening. Something big is happening right now to Western currencies. I don't know if you've been following. So this week, unbeknownst to almost no one, a shady group of globalist elites, people, I didn't even know this group, to be honest with you, who run our monetary system, very quietly rolled out the new way that you will bank and pay for goods. Do you know these guys? We'll get to them in a second. Where you'll buy your meat, your eggs, buy your gas, your petrol. All of these things will now be functionally controlled by this group. This is how you will invest with this new digital currency infrastructure. The only reason we even know about this is thanks to a press release that they put out issued by this shady group of people. And it happened last week right under our noses during spring break, I guess, when everyone was not really paying attention. So let's go through how crazy this is and what this will lead to for central bank digital currency in the United States. We've already seen CBDCs being rolled out in other countries as well. But this is the umbrella CBDC that would go over all of them. So last week, the DCMA announced through a press release the rollout of a new international CBDC. This is crucial. Here's their press release. I'm going to try to read a dry press release.
I'll read the first part so that you can take a break. Today at the International Monetary Fund Spring Meetings 2023, the Digital Currency Monetary Authority announced their official launch of an international central bank digital currency that strengthens the monetary sovereignty of participating central banks and complies with the recent crypto asset policy recommendations proposed by the IMF. This universal monetary unit, symbolized as ANSI character, it's like a U with an umlaut,
right?
I guess, is legally a monetary commodity, can transact in any legal tender, settlement, currency, and functions like a CBDC to enforce. That's all we got.
So what the hell? Who is the DCMA? Who are these people? But I'm telling you, anybody who's in a Western-aligned government right now absolutely is tied to this. And that's all you need to know right there. So who the hell are these guys, this shady group, the DCMA, that's now working with the IMF to govern all of our financial transactions? Turns out, according to their press release, they're a secretive group of, quote, sovereign states, central banks, commercial and retail banks, and other financial institutions. Is that sufficiently vague for you? So sovereign governments are behind this. So central banks are behind this. Big banks are behind this. Yes, a group of unelected globalists are behind this. Do we have names? No, we don't, because they're operating in the shadows. As journalist Michael Snyder says, quote, basically, it sounds like a secretive cabal of international banks and national governments is conspiring to push this new currency down our throats. Yes, exactly. And here it is. Here it is. They're calling it the Universal Monetary Unit. And here it is. It's Unicoin. Unicoin. This is what it will look like. Well, it's not going to look like this because it's fake. It doesn't exist, right? It's not an actual physical currency. Like it's not actual gold or silver. It's fake. So, and it will work. So imagine all of these little currencies will now report up to the mothership like a science fiction film. You know, here's the mothership and all of these little euros and dollars and whatever other currencies exist out there. How is it going to work? We don't know. Will it be on your phone? Probably not. Will you have a plastic debit card? Probably not. No, remember Professor Richard Werner told us how this will work and what this control will do to all of us. Watch.
Also, they never talk about the nature of this CBDC. What is it actually going to look like? They never talk about that. Right. But I heard one European central banker tell me what it's going to look like. He saw it. He was invited to one of the old central banks in Europe that are very much promoting this. And they showed him. And, you know, he's a top, executive director of another central bank in Europe. And there's no reason to believe that he was telling me a story. And he was around this large and would be implanted under your skin. So that is the plan.
Right.
And of course, that has other implications on top of what we've mentioned, on top of the control aspects, because that actually enters your body, in my view, violates human dignity, and can be then used for, even in terms of functionality, beyond the monetary and economic transaction purposes. So highly dangerous and definitely something we have to oppose. And so using cash is one of the things we can do to make sure that the hurdle will be higher for the central planners to introduce the CBDC.